Welcome, everyone. My name is Damien, if anyone doesn't know, Damien Marie AtHope, and I'm an Axiological Atheist. And I have to debate or online, discuss with people. And one of the things that the most common problem that to me thinkers in general have is use of fallacies. So, and religious, of course, are the ones that seem to be appealing to it more. Generally, to me, you appeal to fallacies as a safety mechanism to fight against the fact that your argument is losing, basically. Or that you can't figure out a better way to do your argument, or you're not thinking, critically. But generally, to me, and there could be some other reasons, but to use a fallacy because it feels good to you or something emotionally. But the issue is that generally, when we're debating someone asking for evidence and they're doing a lot of fallacies, it's because of emotional appeals, really. It's not really that they have any facts. It's that they don't have any facts, and the emotional response to the not having facts is the protective mechanism intellectually, or actually lacking intellect. It comes up with the fallacies, the jumps in logic that don't make sense. So I really wanted to address that today. So this is about religious fallacies, appeal to emotion, and its multiple fallacy subheadings. Well, some think, well, what's wrong with an emotional appeal, right? As emotions are important parts of our lives. Yes, emotions can be both useful to understand as well as fallacious as arguments. When I say understand, though, I mean understand, are the feelings from other people. That doesn't mean that we understand facts of the world. I'm just saying that emotions can help us, navigate social relationships, basically, or understand the errors that are occurring in social relationships, when we see emotional responses. So, but how do emotions affect our reasoning or our arguments is what is the important issue. Some may think, well, this is okay, to have emotional appeals. Somehow that even in an argument they would be not fallacious as trying to be not direct evidence of emotion. That's what I'm talking about. So, but emotions, however, can be used, appropriately and relevantly. I'm not saying that they don't have a place. However, emotions can be used in inappropriate thinking ways. And this is when we usually are not thinking or have stopped thinking critically. And we're using the power of emotional offerings in our thinking. And this ends up, I would say, in our language and our logic. And so this use of this type of a notion, of emotion as fallacy is really what I want to address. And I think it also can be one of the harder ones sometimes, because in a sense, they're relating, someone's giving us an emotional argument, they're relating to a thing that we can relate to. Like if they talk about a God, I don't have any clue what the heck a God is. That's a three-letter noise that people seem to use to justify their bigotries, but as an actual thing, yeah, not so much. In fact, not at all. In fact, I don't even know what they're talking about to even start looking. But anyway, so the God is this God thing, has a lot of emotional baggage. Just think about the word God. When you think about the word God, we have come to believe that it means some kind of a supreme supernatural being. But could we not have a supreme supernatural being that wasn't a God? Or is it simply the becoming a supernatural being of all these characters, traits, that makes you a God? See, this is important to me because it goes back to the feelings. Because to me, if we look at archaeologically, which is something that, and anthropologically, which is something that I've been doing for the last 10 years, ever since I decided that I wanted to seek truth over lies and left the Bible, faith behind and moved on to facts and evidence. And So, going to anthropology and archaeology, I'm starting to get some interesting ideas about possibly, where the ideas of gods and goddesses came from. And so, to me, it looks like the first worship was a stone snake in South Africa about 70,000 years ago. And then, I believe that totemism up in Europe about 30,000 to 50,000 years ago. By 30,000, it becomes shamanism in Siberia, and that branches all down into the Americas and down into the lower places of Asia and into Europe and into Turkey through northern Iran and the anyways. And then once it gets to Turkey, to me, then we see about 12,000 years ago, I see these temples and stuff being built, and to me, I surmise that so the beliefs that they're doing, appears to be early, paganism. And to me, once again, all these stages to me, when in religion, it's not clear stages. It's not like when we think of religions today, where you make a new religion, it becomes a full package. It's more like, to me, that religion is like a Lego set. You just keep putting Legos until you build this model that you're calling God, or you're calling this certain religion. It's just a bunch of random, ideas from the past that you just keep, tradition. You just keep putting together and trying to come up with the same thing. And what happens to me is that it becomes less a belief. This is what I want really to get people to understand, to me at least, how I see it. It's less of a belief than an emotional appeal, to bonding that they have towards a clan kind of an idea. Like the concept of God, or see Jesus to a Christian, isn't for a lot of them, isn't really like it's an abstract idea that they believe. It's like a personal friend. It's like a mentor or a father figure or whatever. But the point is, I'm trying to say is, it's seen as almost like a real person. So they've personified the term God. To me, God is more like a label of authority. Because you could be a supreme being but not be a God. But to be a God, it's claiming something. That you have the ability to do something. And it's not just you have, you're Superman. So I think this is the issue, though. The word starts out with, to me, a loaded emotional meaning. They're saying it means supernatural being, but what it really means to them is an actual, like a member of their family. It's in the mind. It's being accepted to me as a personal thing. And to me, I think this is not saying it's true for all religions, because depending on, I would say, probably how personal you think the God is with you is how personal you're going to have an emotional connection to it. But to me, it still will be an emotional connection, because even if it's, in a sense, not seen as Christianity, totems, let's say, people would, in totemism, don't look at the totem as a god. Sometimes it can be, but in general, the totem's not a god. It's usually a story about ancestors and stuff. But so the totem references something particular, or the clan itself, like in a metaphorical way. Just like the same way that, like a sports team, it has an eagle or a hawk or jaguar or a dolphin or whatever. I'm sorry, I don't know sports, so but anyways. So it's that animal they're attaching. So when you attach the animal, it's giving it a kind of a concrete emotional connection. And you're caring about that, in a sense, metaphorical animal or whatever for your sports team. But does it really have anything to do with the sport? No. It's completely a contrived thing that then we buy into. And we start seeing it as more, the metaphorical thing, as more than this, just the colors, the shapes, or say even the animal or whatever. We don't think it's just like you can. In other words, there's a difference between a mascot or something for a team and just a picture. Like I paint the picture of a flower, it means nothing. But if it's this one sports team that's the biggest in the world, and it's the Daisies or something, and everybody wears daisies and cares about daisies and wears white and blue, yellow and or whatever, and just goes crazy for daisies. I think that's what daisies are, but don't hold me to that. I don't know what color daisies really are. I'm trying to think now. I think that's what it is. But anyways, my point I'm trying to say is it's that movement from the sacred to the profane. And it's that kind of it's the religious in a sense mindset, or that's the sacredness or the not, which is that emotional element that we're adding to move something from just a plain something to a special something. It's emotions. Think about it, it's like your a house pet or whatever. They move from being, when they say they're first introduced, they're just some strange animal. But once you have them 5 years and you become comfortable with them, they become, in a sense, to some people, part of the family. And to me, that's the same thing, though, that happens to beliefs, especially about religion, because they're so indoctrinated, and that indoctrination, makes us feel that emotional drag on it. So to me, appeal to emotion as a general unfair argument tactic involves sloppy thinking. This is regardless if it is either done because of confusion, some kind of a delusion, not understanding logic, or intellectual dishonesty. And to me, that's one of the ones that's the most important is, it's that violation of the dishonest. And I think a lot of straight preachers and stuff intentionally know they're using fallacies, and they do it anyway. Because they know that especially those emotional appeals, they work. This is the thing, though. The reason why fear works is great is not because there's an actual hell that people are afraid of. No. It's that fear puts a dignity attack, in a sense, straight to inside our feeling of safety. So, the safety is a basic need. So in a sense, when we don't feel safe, we'll almost do anything to in a sense, feel safer. Even if we're cognitively not aware, we can be emotionally hijacked. Where our mind goes, oh, I don't want to feel scared. I don't want to feel threatened. I don't want to. So it like hijacks us and goes, almost like fight or flight, in a sense, that it makes us want to go, okay, I want to accept this because, boy, I'm feeling feelings now. Well, yeah, you're feeling a threat to your safety, and thus you're feeling scared. And emotional, or words people say, can definitely affect us. Because just remember, words are like emotional packets of information that we share with each other. And then, because they have meaning, right? Words have meaning. They're symbolic in the sense that it's not just sounds, it means something. So, one person's faith doesn't interfere with the pursuit of truth if you're open to all faith being true. So, but if one's personal faith tries to say that only your religion, only your God is true because of faith, well, then you can't do that. Because faith is not a way to evidence. Faith can't discern from something. So, and let's go back to the thing. So, you could say that I believe in faith, but you couldn't limit that statement to just your faith. Because you would need something other than faith. Because if it was only the faith itself, well, then every other religion that uses faith, every other faith belief in general, because there's plenty that don't involve religion, they would all be equally possibly true. So faith to me starts on a fallacy. It can't even be true. And yet it pushes itself as true. So relevant facts and information in faith are not purposely, in a sense, being omitted. They're not even being investigated. Now, sometimes faith definitely can be, in a sense, used as an argument. But this is the argument they have to understand. You could say, I have a lot of faith. What you're really saying, instead in that kind of a turn towards a belief, would be I have a lot of confidence. But confidence doesn't equal proof. So while it's evidence of your confidence, and sometimes, in other words, there's sometimes one person could have a confidence level higher than another and it'd be valid. But that doesn't mean you can make the other person understand that just because. In other words, like if I said, this friend of mine did this. Well, you don't know the friend. You don't know me that well to trust me about what I say about my friend. So you wouldn't be real confident in having to say an opinion about my friend. But if I actually had that friend, and I could, if I know them, maybe make a comment and have information. And it still may not be true. Just because I have an opinion about someone does not inherently by itself mean it is true. But I'm just showing you the variation of difference that depending on how you position it. But still, if faith is not facts, it cannot be presented in an unbiased manner, right? Faith can't. So it's a fallacy if you try to use it as evidence. It cannot do anything. It's just confidence, blindly. So let's get to the issue of intellectual honesty, because this is, I think, something that is part of this. So we can make logical fallacies by accident. It's really the intentionally trying to just not follow the truth and to throw like fallacies, as roadblocks or thinking roadblocks or something. But anyways, Harvard ethicist said that the kernel of intellectual honesty is a virtuous disposition to ensue deception when given incentive for deception. In other words, to be virtuous in the fact that where you could do deceptive things, you don't do the deception. And intentionally committed fallacies in a debate or in your reasoning are definitely intellectual, or have the potential to be intellectual dishonesty. If you're knowingly doing them, you're more than likely it's intellectual dishonesty. It's like intellectual lying. It's really underhanded. Intellectual honesty is honesty in the acquisition, the knowledge, and the transmission of ideas. A person is being intellectually honest when they know the truth, they state it as the way the truth actually is. So this is real important to me about facts. So to me, as an axiologist, truth is a value judgment that we put on what we believe is evidence. So when we think of truth, it's a conclusion. It's like in other words, like in philosophy, it used to be. Now there's some caveats for it, but in general, it's justified truth, equals knowledge. And so, but what they really mean is a confirmation of your truth's justification, to at least how I would think of it. So when I claim of truth, so that's the claim. They say, this is true. I'm making a truth claim, which is an axiological judgment that I have something of evidence that equals facts and worthy of knowledge. And so, but the question is it true? And if we're not presenting it as it actually is, then to me, we are being intellectually dishonest. And this is what religion does all the time. I mean, it'll go, well, there's energy, and because there's energy, and energy never dies, so because of that, we have souls. What the hell? Even if energy doesn't die, why does that make you think that somehow your personality is going to live on after your mind? I mean, that's actually a logical fallacy to me, because how do you get from just energy doesn't die to your mind and all you that you think you are, your perceptions or whatever, all your memories, all that somehow stays? It's just unscientific. So the question is, what does this energy, because see, first off, the belief is we have energy. Well, we have heat, if that's what you mean by energy. And then when we die, the heat of our body is transmitted back into the environment, as our body radiates into coolness as we're totally are dead. I mean, so then it all left us, and it was heat, no energy. But anyways, so this thing about intentionally stating things, in a way that's deceptive. And it's like someone saying, well, because we built boats, Noah could have built a boat, thus the whole thing was, true in the Bible. Like, what the? No. You could build boats that wouldn't prove any magic. You could even end up in a flood with a boat that still doesn't prove magic. The magic, really, to me, the Bible comes about the Noah story. It's just, okay, let's say that every magic was true, which I do not believe at all. But let's say, okay, now all the animals come out of the ark, and there's only 2 of every kind. And there's been water on the whole earth for an entire year. That means every living thing is dead. Every plant, everything else. So if all this had died and was now, not edible in a sense, all the animals that eat vegetation or whatever, and some of them need specific kinds of vegetation, they would all die. But before that happened, they would probably be killed by the predators. Because remember, their predators are coming out hungry, unless more magic, for a long time. Because all the predators come out, and there's only 2 of all kinds, so if they eat 1 of each animal, then the whole species is gone. In a sense, because once the next animal died, then it's over. They couldn't repopulate or whatever. I mean, it's just ludicrous. But they go back to all kinds of fallacies. But in general, it's a pervasive, to me, fertile ground when you have faith for the possibility of intellectual dishonesty. Whenever even faith, I don't even like thinking about the word as a positive thing at all. Because to me, like I'm saying, it's a fertile ground for dishonesty and logical fallacies. Because unless you're just talking about your own mind, about, relating to your own mind, if you're really trying to convince anyone else of anything, faith is a worthless thing to use. And like I said, actually, to even propose it is to lay fertilizer all over the ground of logical fallacies. So a true truth seeker should have higher ideals. It's important to find out what is actually true. And it certainly is important to have the desire to know what's true. So anyways, irrelevant fact and information, when people are being intellectually dishonest, are also admitted. In other words, they know some things, but they won't tell you the full truth. So these are important things to understand. So so what's a fallacy? What's a logical fallacy? Well, it's not exactly always the same as lying, although it still is definitely an error that one is committing. And like I said, it certainly can also involve being dishonest. But it's not always. Sometimes it's just bad thinking. So, but it's, in a sense, it's like a lie in logic, leading them to this false thing. Or it's starting with the lie in logic that just is false, and so it all becomes false, in a sense. In reasoning, to argue and claim with the fallacy is to reason, in a sense, in a way that is logically incorrect. And it undermines, in a sense, your beliefs' viability. it removes it makes your argument unsound. But anyways, regardless of the soundness that may be involved, you can also demonstrate fallacies, in the way that we structure things, in the way that we build up arguments and we put one thing in front of another. Like I can say, I really hate blah, blah, blah. Would you like to, do something? And then because I've already said hate in a sense with that thing, it's like priming you. It's like setting you up to already think about this thing. People, in a sense, I was making a comment that you can, because you could say, well, love is important. Don't you love your family? I mean, what are you going to say? No, but it's ridiculous red herring, because what does that have to do with evidence of your God or of your religion or of what you're trying to point to explain? But anyways, so to me in general, faith is a fallacy in the way it's used in argumentation. And it's really, to me, like an impairment of critical thinking to even believe that faith is something of evidence. But, religion teaches that faith is the greatest thing. That if you just have enough faith, like, what does that mean? Enough of wishful thinking. But anyways, so if you start, though, with this kind of flaw in your critical thinking, the likelihood of ending up in some sort of a reasoning error is high. And faith does things like validating faith with faith is begging the question, and it makes a jump in logic, because it's not following, which is a non sequitur fallacy. And it's questionable cause, like proposing the false cause of post hoc fallacy, and incomplete evidence is what faith is. It's not actually or it can be faith over evidence, so thus it's faith suppressing evidence in a sense. And they do sometimes like to go, well, how old do you think the Earth is? Or, well, the Earth is, I think, 4.5 billion years old or something like that. Oh, no, I don't believe that. It's 6,000 years. As if, and they say, well, you have your belief, I have my belief. No, you have an unjustified faith belief built and supported with wishful thinking. And I am reciting what science has figured out through testing or whatever. And what I remember of it, because this science, But so this what's going on, like I said, in that sense, to be suppressing evidence. But also, faith can be used like a propaganda technique, to me, in a kind of cherry picking, to where you're focusing on what you like and then putting that on everything else. And then they have such confidence. I have 100% faith. And why do you have that faith? Because of the Bible, the Holy Spirit, the Quran, whatever. So it's the moment that you ask about the faith immediately, because faith, when it first offered, usually asks someone, why do you believe? They say, because I have faith. You say, well, why do you have faith? And then it's always something else. It's not, in a sense, generally faith itself, but like I said, they can offer faith validating faith, and they're just begging the question. But so in a sense, it also faith can involve, things that and arguments that bring up stuff like false equivalence or false analogies. And also, when you're faith, I think that it's important to understand that a lot of times they do generalizations. Like I heard this one time when this guy said, oh, well, 95% of people agree, that there's evidence of design in nature, and that equals an intelligent design. First off, that's a total fucking lie, because 95% of people do not believe that. So to me, it's just because he wants to believe that everybody believes it. See what I'm saying? The faith. fallacy. He has faith that everyone must possibly believe it because he does, and he is so convinced, and so everybody else must also be equally convinced, or they're the ones that's wrong because only he could be right. And it's like hasty generalizations, it's faulty generalizations, and it's certain that a lot of people agree with stuff also is a bandwagon fallacy or ad populum. And that, to me, they're also really, really good at double standards. They'll want to have no evidence for their faith and feel like somehow it's still completely justified. But they'll expect that we're supposed to somehow defend reality itself. Like every time I talk to a Christian, I have to defend against solipsism or something. It's just ridiculous. A total double standard. Or they'll say somehow their one use of faith, special pleading, their one thing of faith is outside of everybody else's because of special pleading. So, contrary to the faith fallacy tactics, and that's how I see it, I don't see faith in the sense as a argument tactic as just one thing. It's like the fertilizer for all the other fallacies. That because I have this blind faith that I need to somehow suppress others from realizing is a fallacy or is lacking all justification, I will, do whatever emotionally I can to defend it. Appeal to emotion is appealing to our passions. And so it's a logical fallacy, and it is definitely, to me, a form of manipulation, appeal to emotion. Now, manipulation could be intentional or non-intentional, so I'm not saying it has to be always with evil or malicious intent or whatever. But it's still manipulation. We do manipulation all the time, whether good, bad, or otherwise. So, but when we're doing it, or someone is doing, I'm trying not to do, but appeal to emotion. When someone does appeal to emotion, in a sense, they're appealing to the other people's emotions. They're trying to get you to feel sympathy, pity. So they do appeal to consequences, appeal to fear, appeal to flattery sometimes. I've been told that before from a couple street preachers trying to avoid answering my questions. You're a smart guy. And I'm not a smart guy, so I use the Bible. That's what Ray Comfort told me. And I said, well, if you realize that I'm a smart guy and smarter than you, then why wouldn't you listen to me when I say the Bible's not valid? It is not a method to truth, and it has tons of contradictions and tons of inaccuracies and flaws and evil and malicious. Why would you follow it? So to me, though, then they have the appeal to pity, right? So the appeal to flattery, the appeal to pity, all these are emotional appeals, trying to, in a sense, do a red herring and escape answering or having a standard of burden of proof that they really should, or everyone should, hold themselves accountable to. So it's about the validity of what you're saying, and emotional appeals, like appeal to people do a lot of times, is a ridicule, like how stupid you are, or like someone could say to me. I had some theist say to me, well, are you a philosopher? And I said, yeah, I'm a philosopher. And he goes, well, do you have a doctorate? No, I don't. Do you have a degree in philosophy? No, I don't. I said, does someone need a degree to do philosophy? Can they be learned, a scholar, educated in philosophy, yet not be, trained in a college? Is that possible? Because see, it's this. But here it's also irrelevant, because whether or not I've been to college, have training in philosophy, the question is my argument sound? So everything else is just this emotional bullshit. But anyway, so he was trying to emotional appeal by appeal to ridicule, and then you can try appeal to spite or appeal to wishful thinking. And all these, in a sense, are used instead of facts. And they're made, in a sense, to be persuasive language, used, to develop the foundations of these appeals to our base emotions, and thus, in a sense, hijack us or distract us from the flaws in their argument. Appeals to emotion are intended to draw us into our inward feelings and make us feel these feelings, pity or joy or, whatever. So this is what we have to, in a sense, hold ourselves against and see when people are doing it. So these are the ones I'm going to try to do a little quicker, but I'm going to go through some different ones so you can just hear them. So appeal to consequences, appeal to desire, appeal to fear, appeal to flattery, appeal to pity, appeal to ridicule, to spite, appeal to hate, appeal to anger, appeal to shame, appeal to guilt, appeal to pride, appeal to popularity, and then red herrings, wishful thinking, appeal to hope, and ad hominem, attacking the person directly, poisoning the well, in a sense, making so nobody trusts what the person says. Loaded language, to me, they use words that like they'll say, God, but they only mean their God. But they're not saying that. This is loaded. And what do you mean by God? Which God? How many gods? You sure not gods? How about goddesses? So appeal to an argument from authority. Another one they like to do a lot. So to me, appeal to consequences, just think of the heaven and hell threats to get an idea of when they're using that nonsense. So appeal to consequences, also known as argument for consequences, is an argument that concludes the hypothesis, typically a belief, to either be true or false based on whether the premise leads to desirable or undesirable consequences. In other words, this is true because you wouldn't want to go to hell, Well, I don't know that hell's true. Prove hell and prove you're God. I'm not going to believe you're God because of a fake hell that you just invented. So this appeal is based on emotion and it's an informal fallacy. In logic, appeals to consequence refer to arguments that assert a conclusion's truth value, true or false, without regard to the presentation of it being a demonstration or support or justification or warrant that it is true or false. Appeal to consequences does not refer to arguments that address a premise's being good or bad or right or wrong. Instead, it's about its truth value. Like an axiology deals with value. It also deals with good, right and wrong, bad, worth, benefit, and cost. Therefore, an argument based on appeal to consequence is valid in the long-term decision-making, which discusses possibilities that do not yet exist in the present. In other words, abstract ethical concepts, things like that. So appeal to desire. This also goes back to the threats of heaven and hell. Don't you want to be with Jesus? Don't you not want to be, burning in hell? Don't you want to be with your family? Believe, then you can go to heaven. Appeal to desire. In any case, wishful thinking is an appeal to desire, to me almost in general. Appeal to people's desire for such things as safety. Yeah, the removal of the fear thing. Why fear is such a good motivator. Appeal to fear. This is definitely the hell threats. But to me, it also can, in a sense, be the God threats. Because they're just going to reference Christians. So Christians will say, if you don't believe in God, well, then you're going to go to hell. But they also say, in a sense, to appeal to fear. And what about, being cut off from God? You're going to be, they're still appealing to your fear about heaven, even though, in a sense, they would say you're in hell. Appeal to fear is a fallacy which a person attempts to create or support an idea by attempting to increase fear towards its alternative. Appeals to fear are often used in marketing, social policy, and they are a very good method of persuasion. Fear is an effective tool that helps change attitudes. Yeah, it does. Makes you believe in absolute nonsense called the Bible or any religion. Anyways, these are motivated by a message of fear. Appeal to fear scare tactics by John Jacobson. The claim that some action should be taken to prevent an undesirable consequence for not taking the action. It is often presented as a warning. Ooh, and this person is just talking about logic, not even referencing things like the Bible or hell. But you see, it's really almost the same damn thing. So let's go down to appeal to flattery. Now, this has to do with, to me, trust manipulation. In other words, if I'm nice to you, you trust me more. But I'm being nice to you in that kind of context. Appeal to flattery is what I'm talking about. Appeal to flattery is being nice to you. The trust manipulation is that because it's a variation of emotional manipulation. You now trust me because I'm being nice to you or kind to you or because I believe in you or I'm saying. So I'm appealing to, I'm disarming you. Like, oh, you're so great, and it makes you feel safe. So I've removed your fear by the flattery, which adds, once the fear is removed, then it adds in your trust. And so that's how they're manipulating. And appeal to pity. Accommodationalist arguments generally are like this against us firebrand atheists. And to me, it's a moralism appeal. Unwarranted moral criticism, or attempt at it, to somehow downgrade the force of the legitimate, things that the person is doing. This moral criticism, and it should be, moralism itself to me, it should be seen as a vice when you're oppressing the kind of stuff like that on people. Now, I think you can hold people to ethical standards and pro-social behavior, but moralism is just nonsense. How I see it is like this. So morals, in a sense, are your internal things to me. That's what you do. So when someone says, I have morals, yeah, sure, you do. Yeah, okay. And then when you act with others, it's ethics. That's why there's no business morals, there's business ethics. So, and that's why religion, it has morals. Well, yeah, of course. You're referring to what people should personally do. The problem I have big with religion is when they try to push that moralistic nonsense, which is not ethics, onto other people. So, yes, in other words, and think of it this way. So, I try to have, if I can, an intellectual honesty. That is me utilizing my moral persuasion. So, but my then in a debate acting with intellectual honesty, or acting in a way that is intellectually honest, in a sense, then I've moved it to a behavior, an ethic. So, in a sense, that's how, in a sense, to me, morals and ethics can relate to something and say my behavior and my thinking. So the desire to do it is the moral. The behavior of doing it in the world to people would be the ethics to me. So now to appeal to ridicule. To me, this is kind of like a form of discrimination against generally atheists. I feel, not that atheists don't do the ridicule thing, because I've sadly seen people do it with just the intent to try to distract someone. Generally, though, the difference I would say is that I feel, at least I don't know that this is 100% fact, but I feel that in my situations of what I've seen, it feels like that the religious people do it to hide their arguments. atheists sometimes do the ridicule stuff that can be a fallacy, but generally they're doing it more because they're irritated at the just ridiculous offerings they're getting from the theists. I mean, I have to say that I have to control my emotions and my anger too, or frustration when things are said to me, and I don't even know how to respond. Like one time someone said to me, "Well, I know God is real because you can see a baby smile and know that God exists." I'm like, what kind of proof is that? A baby smiles and so you know there's a God? I said, so if a baby frowns, is that evidence of Satan? I mean, it's just, yeah. So, but in a sense, I'm attacking her, I'm making fun of her, but I'm trying to do, in that sense, even though I like to try to not do it, but that sense, I'm being sarcastic with the goal of almost like a reductio ad absurdum, showing your argument is no good. So in a sense, I'm not really appealing to ridicule, or at least trying not to, in any kind of a fallacious way. But it's best to try not to be a person who's ridiculing. And I try, because sometimes, I mean, people get irritating, when they say things that so. But I try to have sympathy. Anger's easy. Fuck, everybody can be angry. But be thoughtful, be kind, be considerate to people that are angry. Now that takes serious character. And to me, I want to do that because I don't go out, and I'm not talking now just because I like to debate or say things. I want to help. I want to make a difference. So to me, it comes back to what do I want to be? Not what everyone else is doing, but what do I want to be? And I want to be a friend of the world. I want to make a difference as much as I can. And that is done the most effectively when I'm thoughtful, when I'm kind, when I'm understanding, when I'm generous. Those are the times in other words, you can get someone to see your ideas more by offering it as a gift than punching them in the face. So another thing too, like I said before, is appeal to spite. And this generally has to do with people in a debate, or maybe multiple debates. Now I've seen this person 2-3 times. Oh man, and you can have a tendency to want to go towards spite, and also this relates to things like the appeal to hate. Appeal to hate is a fallacy that occurs when something is claimed to be true because it is, causes anger, So just like that, though, is like I said, poisoning of the well. These are just emotional appeals, and then there's appeal to anger. I think anger was one of the hardest issues to have to deal with because it's almost like the fight or flight. Anger's like the fight part. We always think of anger like I am angry, but anger's like a secondary emotion. And in other words, anger is a response to another thought or emotion. It is not a direct thing of itself. And so it's generally like what makes me angry. And a lot of times we think, well, they did this, thus I feel angry. No. Someone attacked me. I felt violated. The violation realization made me angry. Anyways, so and there's also the appeal to shame. An appeal to shame is a fallacy that occurs when someone's actions or argument are described as shameful, meaning to look down by others in society. And therefore, because of the society seeing it as wrong, in a sense that it is wrong. And this is something to me that the people that are like religious and hate homosexuals, they like to say, well, society looks down on it. How many places, the world all look down on it, therefore it's bad, Well, the whole world could look down on, the whole world could in a sense be pro-slavery. That still wouldn't make slavery right. And so the appeal to pride. Appeal to pride is a form of appeal like a reverse of shame. So shame is trying to make someone feel shameful. The pride would be the exact opposite or reverse of that. Instead of saying that something is shameful, instead you describe something that you should be proud of. But you're doing it in a sense like I said was done to me. And, you know, smart people like you may get it, but I need the Bible. Well, or you deserve XYZ, or aren't you proud of XYZ, or, you know, if so, then how come you believe XYZ, you know, whatever. It's like they're trying to like rope you in by first getting, you know, appeal to pride. And this is a very effective method because not everyone, but most people like to hear nice things about themselves. So as soon as someone does that, we want to agree. We want to see it differently. We want to see them differently. Because if we see them as the complete other or enemy when someone's making us feel good, then we won't want to accept what they're saying as much. But if we see them more as like a new friend, oh, well then their words have more meaning. Not that that actually should be how we see things, because facts should be facts. Evidence is evidence. Your emotional feelings are only evidence of emotional feelings, not direct relations always to the world. Sometimes you can have emotions towards something and it doesn't have anything at all. I mean, it's us that is, you know, creating this. And so I'm going to address the red herring, because in a sense this is kind of what all of this is. It's a kind of red herring. A red herring is something that misleads or distracts from a relevant, important issue, fact, evidence, whatever, or debate, or, you know, belief. Okay, it's an informal fallacy, and unlike a straw man fallacy that presents something different than the person, or a easier version of something they do, it's presumed it's more like a distortion of the person's position, when or a distortion that removes you from the position. Like if we're trying to understand, you know, what someone claimed evidence of God, and then they start talking about their car or whatever, it's a tactic. They've got us off thinking about something else. Okay, and this fallacy is also known as, in a sense, like a misdirect. And it's also kind of like adding a false emphasis. You're like bringing something in so people will look at it and not pay attention to what's really required. Generally, it's just people trying to evade that they have a burden of proof that they cannot meet. And so, ad hominem. This is a logical fallacy occurs when someone attempts to refute an argument by attacking the claim maker, rather than engaging in an argument of factual, you know, reputation or addressing of the actual claim or belief or evidence or whatever's being offered. So, I want to talk about a little bit about poisoning the well. Poisoning the well is a smear tactic, in a sense. It's a form of a rhetoric technique that's used and associated with negative emotions to distract from actual evidence or lack of evidence in arguments. So, loaded language. Loaded language is intended to produce emotional responses in the mind or in the audience listening. And it directly affects, in a sense, the person's ability to view the topic correctly, or it allows them to, in a sense, push in ideas that they haven't justified with loaded language. It's kind of like prejudicial language. They're like, if I say, well, don't you see the design of the world? I'm already starting with there is a design. Now, and I'm loading the language. Or this happened to me one time on the street. I'm talking to Ken Ham. He said to me, "Well, do you think that evolution created life or something?" I can't remember now exactly what he said, but he's trying created. He's not meaning like evolution process to asking a question like, because if I believe in evolution, then I actually don't believe in creation. I believe in evolution. But he's trying to, in a sense, put the loaded language word in there of creation, because then he goes like, "Oh, well, do you believe that evolution is God?" I'm like, "No, I don't believe that. If you stated that, then you would be using God as an invalid placeholder or something, because evolution is already a process we know, we can demonstrate, and how could you possibly say that no, I'm not saying that at all. And so it's just trying to manipulate. And to me, like I said, I care about trying to see the layers of value, the layers of what's going on, so that I can address it. And it's because I'm a value theorist in a sense. Axiologist is a value theory. It's a form of value theory. Value theory is a range of approaches of understanding the how, the why, and the what in degree of position of value of things. Whether it's an object, a subject of valuing as a person, idea, object, anything else. Investigation in this, in a sense, started in all the kind of ancient philosophy. And now the more modern thing is to call it axiology. Some people say axiology is the same as ethics. I would say axiology gives the value meaning to the meta-ethics that gives, understanding of how you establish, your ethics in my sense. So the term value theory can be used in three different ways in philosophy. In the broadest sense, value theory is a catch-all term that encompasses, in a sense, all branches of moral philosophy, social and political philosophy, and aesthetics, and sometimes also feminist philosophy, and it can also involve the philosophy of religion. So it has to do with its evaluation aspect. In the narrowest sense, value theory is, in a sense, can be thought of almost as being synonymous with axiology, although axiology and value theory are a little bit different in a sense. Axiology is a value theory, and value theory, and by doing value, in a sense, is relating to axiology, sort of. But anyways, but it depends on how people use words too. So I just want to really quick, before I wrap it up, I want to address why, in a really quick way, in a sense, why I do not believe in God. So, no God. Why? Well, no evidence of intelligence, no evidence of goodness. Thus, a valid atheism conclusion. No evidence. To move past the atheistic null hypothesis, there is no God. Gods, in a sense, thus the null hypothesis is like a statistical method of hypothesis where no significant difference is reached by the claim or the non-claim. It is up to the one saying the claim that has to produce the evidence. Thus, holding that there is no God, gods, and as God faith is an assumption of this non-evidentiary evidence or lack of evidence, wishful thinking, this invention of non-reality, and at best is a mystery thing. And this is found to me in all core God talk. And to me, it is all invalid until it can provide demonstrable justification otherwise. The alternative hypothesis, there is a God, but this is offered with nothing at all, and thus it fails. And to me, it's an axiological presumption value failure. You presumed this thing had value. You could not justify that. You have failed in your requirement, burden of proof, axiological presumptive value, requirement to prove that this thing has the value you're claiming it does. But it does not. So you have done an axiological presumptive value failure. God also has no intelligence to be seen. Taking into account that there is a reality, and the world that we're presented with, that science seems to be able to understand, the best tool we have is science at this point, to understand the reality of the world. And looking at that, just look at the fact that 99%, this has to do with the several extinction events that have happened that I'm going to address. So 99, just remember though, 99% of all the species that have ever existed on the earth have gone extinct. That to say is an intelligent design is ridiculous. 5 massive extinctions wiped out 99% of the species that have ever existed on earth. Therefore, like a child's report card having an F, they need to retake the class. Thus, profoundly God would be, if there was one, profoundly unintelligent designer. So, because they claim that the God is an intelligent design, there is no God. No goodness. Assess through ethically challenge the good God assumption. It's axiological presumptive value. And it is a presumptive value failure, because we do have a world we can look at and we can assess, is it a good world? Is it the best of all possible worlds? Is it inherently an unethical, if it was designed, world? I would say yes. If this is a designed world, it's unethical. But let me go on. So, I would assert that God, if responsible for this world, would make it a moral monster because of the right problem of evil and the suffering, which is the argument is called the argument from evil. God would be responsible for all pain, as life could have easily been less painful. And yet, this so-called loving, caring God, the one with all the power, did otherwise. He's either not a good God, or she's not a good God, or they are not a good God, or it is not a good God, or goddess, or gods, or whatever. Or it doesn't exist. So there's no evidence, no hypothesis, doesn't exist. There's obviously no intelligent design, thus doesn't exist, as far as that claim. And then no goodness. So no evidence, no intelligence, and no goodness. Then what are you even talking about? And God, like I said, will be responsible for all pain and all mass suffering. In fact, to me, every child born with diseases of massive deformity from birth scream out against a caring, loving God who is all-powerful and can do otherwise. It would be different, as there is things like congenital insensitivity to pain, in which a person cannot really feel the pain and possibly never felt physical pain or very much. Some of these people die, but some of them live to be 35. Anyway, my point is, the fact that it already, in a sense, randomly is showing to exist, it means it absolutely is possible for God to have made all of us have less pain. So just think if a designer designs a toy for your child and it harms your child, you don't say, well, it's the child's fault. You say bad designer, if it is claimed to be designed. So if this world is the way that God built it, well, then God's a moral freaking monster. Or is not loving, not caring, and just irrelevant. Humans are nothing. And as an axiological atheist, I understand and try to utilize actual value and actually try to employ a value consciousness, just an awareness that the world is not black or white, that the world is not just this or that there's variations, and even in the black there's variations, and in the white there would be variations. That it's the desire, in a sense, to not do so much generalizing and try to do more, real deep thinking. And to me, it's a choice, but it's not someone to have to make to be a deep thinker. But I think that we should definitely strive to be more than shallow thinkers. And so, to me, this axiology, this is a strong, in a sense, moral, internal, ethical, external, understanding, which makes it, in a sense, axiology, especially when it's related to God in this context, is the problem of evil is an axiological, in a sense, argument. Or you could say that an axiological argument is addressing the problem of evil generally when you're saying problem of evil. There's other ways you can address the problem of evil than just axiology, but it's certainly the main thing would be axiology, whether you knew it or not. And as well as, to me, it is used to fortify my humanism. The axiology, seeing the value of others, seeing the value of the world of animal, it gives me my humanism. It also gives me my positive ethical persuasion, my desire to help and care. It is value blindness that gives rise to sociopathic evil, to that disconnect from others, to that lack of care. So I want to thank everyone for joining me, and I hope that